in my video. So really, it's the stress of knowing that the video is due that spurns action. Setting the time aside to get a couple hours to plan it out and do the video. I wouldn't have done all that, except that I'm kind of getting stressed out about the deadline approaching. I found that this is also the case for me at work. When there is a lot on my plate and I know that some stuff is coming up and people are going to need some stuff from me, that stress pushes me to work faster or more efficiently, or at longer hours even, to make sure that everything that needs to get done gets done. Organizational interventions for stress was another part of the question. Interventions for stress. So stress management training is talked about on page 356. I've heard of this, but I've never actually seen it implemented in a company before. It's probably, I think one time I saw something where a company had like some computer-based training that was, basically a video you watched and learned how to manage your stress and take little breaks and do some meditation or something. I'm not sure how valuable all that is, but some organizations implement it, as I understand. Employee assistance programs, the EAPs that were talked about in the book, that I have seen. One company that I was with, one of the part of the benefits package was that they had us all on this EAP program. And it wasn't just for stress, but that was on the list. But they had like financial counseling and there was like therapy offered, and there's a lot of different services offered as part of it, just to kind of have, in addition to our dental and medical, we also had the EAP. And I did find that it was helpful. Some of the employees used it. One person for some financial counseling, which was helpful. It didn't really cost anything and was able to get some extra information to deal with some debt management or something. So definitely can see where that could be beneficial. 3, what do you believe is most helpful in structuring how you think about conflict and, more importantly, the resolution of conflict? So I've come to the understanding that conflict is important. I used to not believe that at all, but going through this class and some other classes, some other information I've come across recently, I've come to realize that conflict is inevitable. Anytime you have people with different backgrounds and different experiences, conflict is, what happens when people have different ideas. And if you didn't have conflict, I'm pretty sure we saw this in a previous chapter, without conflict, that means that people aren't voicing their opinions or ideas, and you're not getting as much out of the team as you should be if there isn't any conflict. So having swallowed that chunk for now, for myself, I've always avoided conflict as much as possible. I really don't like confrontation. I'm not confrontational. So in the Kilman-Thomas conflict mode instrument, there's a mouthful, on page 364, it has the 5 different kind of approaches to conflict, and it ties in with the leadership styles that they were talking about in a previous chapter. So I think that just looking through all that I would tend to be considered accommodating most of the time, not too assertive and pretty willing to work with somebody being accommodating. At my best, I'm compromising, willing to give a little and take a little, kind of compromise with people. So wanting to collaborate, not being too assertive, trying to avoid that confrontation. Collaboration is about working together to meet everyone's needs. That's defined there on page 364 as well. And that really is the ultimate goal. So as I read through this, I guess what I get out of it the most is that because I know conflict is important and that my ideas matter, in order to become more about collaboration, being a collaborator, I hope to learn and work on being more assertive with my ideas and not so compromising or accommodating, so that I can help be a better part of a team. So the case study question, 3 concepts from this week's reading that can be applied to the case. So I chose How Do You Get Anything Done Around Here? The story about Kate, who got hired for Donaldson Foods and then lost her project into the black hole. So the first item that I identified on page 350 in the text, it talks about the lack of work can be a stressor. I've experienced this personally as well, by the way. When there is not enough, I'm like, oh man, are we going to be doing anything here soon? Well, am I going to have a job? But so Kate experiences this when there's little demands on her. There's just not that much expected from the employees in the company. Tom talks about this too, and towards the end of the case study, he kind of talks about him. He's checked out. He's not really there at work because there's just not that much expected from them, and most of their ideas don't go anywhere. So what's the point? He's there for a paycheck. The second thing that I noticed was that Kate gets stressed about performing. When she did submit her project to the SMART team, it was taking so long to get results back that she was worrying that she didn't do well on the project. So being concerned that she didn't perform well, she's worrying a lot, and that's stressing her out, it sounds to me like. Also, it talked about so for third, the description of a type A personality is on page 349. And I think that Kate experiences individual psychological stress, as talked about in that section. The research company calls her back to get the go-ahead on the project because she had got them all lined up and then had just submitted it to the SMART team and was really expecting something back soon. And so she had already gotten the research company lined up. She gets a phone call from them saying, "Hey, we're ready to go. What's the status?" And she has to like stall. She stammers and she's making excuses about the owner. And so I really think that her needing to respond to that call is an example of when she would have been pretty stressed out. And it's kind of an individual thing. She's doing it to herself, but understandably so. Another item, fourth, from the chapter about conflict. So Kate was singled out for being too aggressive. I think we've identified already previously that this was kind of a cultural socialization thing. She got singled out and talked to by her boss because she's being too aggressive, her type A personality coming out. And she is doing what she thinks would be kind of a functional conflict. Her previous experience, her ideas about organizations, she believes that by being critical and raising her concerns and points in the meeting would be possibly conflict, but a functional one where it's for the purpose of developing things. Because of the culture there and the socialization that she hasn't yet gotten, everybody else sees this as dysfunctional conflict. They think she's just attacking somebody, being aggressive, and that it's dysfunction that could interrupt the relationships between team members. So like the book talks about, dysfunctional conflict falls into that category. And that's all that I got for the case study. That about wraps it up. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.